insurance. That's why they said they like to have hold back for that.
We'll call the April 7th Lincolnton City Council meeting to order. Could we pause for a moment of silence? Thank you. If we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? One thing that on the agenda, we had application from Century Properties. They have requested to defer it to a later meeting.
The bridge inspections.
Okay. You've got in front of you about the bridge inspections. That needs to be added to the consent agenda items. So that would be under the approval of minutes for the March 3rd meeting. Is that all the changes to the agendas? If so, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda as amended. Motion by Mary Frances. Any objections? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the approval of consent agenda items. It's the minutes and the bridge inspections. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented and amended. Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the public hearings, and I'll open up the public hearing concerning the alleyway, and it's concerning the Carswell property and Anthony Morrison, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Deaton.
Actually, I am Tim Wallace.
I was going to say, you must be a different Deaton than was here before.
That's right, yes. I was just running the projector last time.
So you've moved up from AV man to the spokesperson.
Yes, sir. Okay. So at the last meeting, this council adopted a resolution in order to close a portion of the alleyway at the meeting on March 3rd, and that has been recorded on March 31st in Deed Book 3152 at pages 131 to 135. And that area abutted 5 of the parcels. As you can see on the maps here, there's a north and south portion and an east and west portion. Let me get to that view real quick. So this is the portion that's been already closed. The parcels that were affected at that point were 02058, 55197, 90928, and 00448, and the last one is 90929. There are 2 portions that are yet remaining to be closed, and so I am going to be speaking about, if the council can see, this portion right here. If I may zoom in, this portion abuts 3 different properties. There are the 2 that Mr. Carswell owns, 04.07.22 and 28.575, and there is another that is, it says here Lincoln United Oil, but that company has now changed and is now just United Oil Company, and that parcel is 00492. Similar to the last meeting, there was another property here that abutted that closure as well. It wasn't just Goodson Bill Properties. The request that he has concerns this portion. This is approximately 200 long from here to here. And let me see the next map. Okay, yeah. So this shows what has already been closed, and this is the portion that we are proposing tonight. Similar to the facts of the other case, the portion developed here is not it's not paved. Second, there are no traffic flow concerns or anything that's going to be affected by this closure. And all three of the parcels affected here, as well as those from the other meeting, have not been able to use this portion of the unopened alleyway because it's not open and it has never provided public access since it was platted. And also similar is that the common owner owns both sides of an alleyway here. Distinguished from that is that there is no sewer easement that was on the last one. And even if there was, it wouldn't be objectionable. And the other is that all three of these parcels, though, have road frontage already. So this parcel has road frontage to East Main, and this also to East Main, as well as to Dale Avenue, and this parcel has access to Dale Avenue. As a point of interest, let me go back to the previous slide. You can see here that there looks like a driveway or gravel lot. It's not paved, but this is the green area, and you can see trees here. So these next slides you'll see here again is that unpaved lot and drive, and this is the green space. And just approximately, this is approximately where the alleyway actually lies here. Mr. Carves will just respectfully request this council to approve this alleyway closure because it is not contrary to the public interest and that it will not deprive the affected parcels in this vicinity of reasonable access to the public roadways. The alleyway, being it's unpaved and overgrown, has not provided the public any reasonable access or use to these areas. These parcels particularly would not be deprived of reasonable means of ingress or egress due to the closure because these parcels do not currently enjoy any ingress or egress by use of the alleyway. Instead, they all have their own access. Third is that the alleyway being unpaved and ungrown has not provided the public or the other parcel owners any access to any of these parcels or the previous or all the other parcels in this area. And there are no traffic flow concerns raised or affected. And the last is that the sewer easement, whether or not it applies, would not be affected. Thank you. Any questions?
Any of the city council have any questions? Is there anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Yes.
If you'll come up, please, sir, and identify yourself.
I don't know how to use that. Keith Johnson, I represent Carol and Anthony Morrison. We're interested in the other end of the alleyway on the Ross Street end, and just want to be clear that there's no opposition to closing, but I think the resolution was to close the entire alleyway from one end to the other, and we're supporting that. Also, I believe there is a sewer easement, if not by deed, certainly by prescription, on that end of this alleyway, and we're certainly not in any way attempting to affect that. That easement would be there. In fact, having read the statute, I think that the final order can probably include that, the existence of that sewer easement in that end of the alleyway that's being closed. I don't think anyone could oppose it in any event, but if it's in the order, it's certainly clear, and then there would be no issue with that. All we want to do is be sure we're closing the whole thing from one end to the other. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this issue? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Roby. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now I entertain a motion to either approve or deny the request.
I'll make a motion, we approve the request, including the sewer easement that was suggested.
Motion by Marty. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we're to item 3 on the regular agenda. And I'll turn it over to Tommy Husky. I saw Tom, oh, there he is. I knew I'd seen you before. This is a request concerning using the city council's licensing.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, before Mr. Ziegelfuss left, he and I was talking, and I was trying to come up with a letterhead for the ABC board. And he and I was back and forth, and he sent me a letter and said, "Here, use this letterhead." And I said, "Oh, that looks good." And it was the city's letterhead from his office. So we dressed it up and just put the ABC store on there instead of the city. And then I remember Brick Tree came up and had to ask for the copyright, and y'all had to go through the copyright. So it hit me that we need to approach you to see if we can get the right to show it on our website, our letterhead, and we do some comment cards out at the storefront. And I sent Daphne a copy of the letterhead, and you probably got to look at it. So I'd just like to request that we be allowed to use that.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Husky?
Just on the, two questions. One on the letterhead itself. The copyright has near the city, near the mountains, near perfect as part of the logo. Are y'all able to put that on there?
What would that mean? If it's not on there, we're not infringing? Okay, yeah, I'm sure we can, Marty, that's no problem.
And then the other thing, this would just be for printed material in your website. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, it's part of the city. It operates at the discretion of the city council. To me, it's all one and the same. But I'll entertain a motion from city council to approve.
Make a motion to approve the use of the city logo at the city ABC board.
Motion by Marty. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tommy. Next up is the Water Resource Department, and I'll turn it over to Daniel for presentation. And keep in mind, Daniel, we probably won't know half of what you're talking about, so try to keep it simple, son.
I was telling just a second ago that I was telling Miss Tanya I believe in the KISS motto, and I will try to do my best to keep it short and simple. So, but thank you, Mayor, Council.
Consider who you're working with, so you got to keep it real simple.
I'll be brief. The next two items, of course, I'll go by them each individually so you have the chance to vote on them respectively. But they're both, to say before I go on to the first one, they're both basically being presented because the state says we need to have a FOG program based upon our collections permit, based off the education aspect. So that's what the information is presented. And basically the first item is just stating that we're trying to limit liability for our industries, for our restaurants, and trying to take care of our natural resources. And part of some of the stuff that's just the DEQ has stated. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. You got the 14 pages of the FOG policy, and if you need good material to go to sleep, there
I've
you go.
observed it certainly is a way to rearrange the alphabet in many, many forms. I've never seen that many combinations of letters. I do have one question. That is, in reading this, you're talking about internal baffles and separators and that kind of thing. Are all those things already in place, or are these new requirements on our businesses?
No, a lot of the stuff's already been in place, and this is just kind of, if I can say it to keep it simple, as Mayor requested, just kind of putting some teeth to stuff that's already been enforced, and it's just making sure that we're preventing liability for future reference. So dotting our I's and crossing our T's.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance update to the Lincolnton Code of Ordinances concerning fats, oils, and grease control. Motion by Christine.
Sorry, Mayor.
First one is the policy.
First one is the policy. Okay. That's what I'm looking at. That's what it's titled. Okay.
You said ordinance.
ordinance, I just need to make sure that the
The
motion
next
is.
one's okay.
The next
Okay.
one's ordinance, yeah.
Motion by Christine, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Daniel. And you're up next for the next part of it, the policy.
So as I said, they both kind of go hand in hand. To Daphne's point, this one actually is affecting our sewer use ordinance, and it's updating. And long story short, this is 56 pages, so I won't try to go over all this. But it's just trying to keep the lingo and have it basically reflect one another. So, and last, I don't know, probably 6 months ago or so, we had to talked about with the fee schedule, and so the stuff that's in red is what's being updated. So, and it just again tries to highlight the FOG policy that you guys just adopted.
Are you saying you're trying to keep down to some common sense?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the policy as presented.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance. Isn't this the ordinance? We just did the policy, right? This is the ordinance. Make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
The first one, help me out with this. The first one says ordinance.
No, the first one.
First one says policy.
And the second one, 3B is policy,
Yeah.
3C is ordinance.
But on 3B, it says ordinance to update the city of Lincolnton.
On 3B?
3B?
It's in mine.
Well, no wonder.
No wonder I'm so confused. No, I mean. Okay. Whichever then, we're approving the policy now.
Ordinance.
Ordinance now. Okay. Whatever she said. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Daniel.
If you got a different agenda, we ought to check it. We get some trouble
That's
here.
why I'm looking and I'm going, 3B in me is ordinance.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, mine
That was the
was.
least confusing
Mine
part of
was
that whole thing.
Okay, phew. Well, at least we're through that, thank goodness. Okay, next item, under the regular agenda 4, I'll turn it over to Tanya Osborne, and I'm not even going to attempt to explain what this is.
The next two items are policy revisions that we talked about at the budget workshop on March the 18th. And at that point, we had talked about how they would benefit the city and the employees in these revisions we wanted to make. So the policies have been revised, and that's what you had in your packets. So the first one that we would need to look at is the Article 6 leave of absence, Section 1, which was holidays and floating holiday. And in your packet, you had the information where we were adding the wording. But I had also, in the memo to you, since I was putting changes into those policies, I went ahead and looked at the policies as a whole to ask whether there need to be any other verbiage changed. And so that was listed in the memo that you received as to a couple of things that were changed. Mainly, some of them were things we had in place already. It was just kind of procedural. So the first one regarding the floating holiday, we added the section so where employees have some time that is able to be utilized for things that don't fall underneath the typical vacation and holidays. And that was added to that section, and then we also clarified and put in wording and calculations as to what that meant to each type of employee work week schedules that we have. So that would be the first one we would want to look at because we have to adopt them each individually for each section. Was there any questions you had about the policy revisions that were sent to you?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to the personnel policy as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mary Frances. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next is the personnel policy concerning leave of absence and vacation. And I'll turn it back over to Tanya.
Discussed about some changes to the vacation leave. In particular, the inability of new hires to use any of the vacation time during the probationary period. And actually, I kind of gave you an example of a contingent offer we had out at that time, and the individual was going to get married. And I believe that Richie actually received a memo for permission yesterday, which was copied to payroll and myself, for the individual who will start with us in the next week and a half. So he has permission to go get married now. So.
Much authority. Go.
How could you say no?
So that wording has been put into the policy that we will no longer require permission. We will allow the use of what small accruals that they may accrue during that probationary period. Then the other thing had to do with retiring employees, because our policy was written regarding the vacation hours. Anything over 240 hours was only being transferred to their sick bank at the beginning of a new calendar year. And we wanted to have those retiring employees to have ability to transfer excess over 240 any time of the year, depending on when they're retiring. So that wording was added into that section of the vacation leave too. Is there any other questions you might have about the changes done to that section? Because we did a little bit of housekeeping in that one also at the same time.
How close will they have to be to retirement?
They will have to follow the retirement system guidelines, which is in reference to different types of retirement, whether they are a full retirement benefit or unreduced, full retirement or reduced benefit. So the retirement system is the one that sets the guidelines for that. To apply for retirement, it has to be within 120 days of the retirement date. And most of them, normally they're coming and talking to me about their retirement, and I always highly encourage for them to use the full 120 days the retirement system allows, because they have an influx of applications at certain times of the year, and they do them in the order that they're received. And so we would always want them to be able to get their retirement documents completed in a timely manner. So when they retire, their first pay comes to them when they're expecting it. So most times we do have about 100 days notice that someone's going to retire, which is also good for us because that gives us the opportunity to decide what are we going to do about that position, because we're going to have a vacancy. So I request in writing, so that way we know we've got a retirement and the date. It goes to city manager and the department head, and then the department head's going to make the decision and let me know whether we're going to start recruiting, depending on what kind of position it is when we start recruitment. But they can do it any time between 120 days and actually 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the policy revisions concerning leave of absence and vacation leave as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Roby. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you so much for your support. I'm going to
Well-
see you next month.
Oh, gosh, okay, good. And, and just for information, these are all good for our employees. It's
Yes.
employee benefits. And
Yes.
I think
low
this,
cost to the city.
Right.
That's another positive there too.
Yes.
yeah. So we appreciate you keeping us straight. Thank you. Next item, I'll turn it over to Pam about a budget amendment.
Council members, you have in front of you our budget amendment. Our first portion here is for Bogue City. We have, I will be requesting some amendment from fund balance. This is going to cover some of their salary. Again, this is the fire engine that they purchased, that we mentioned whenever they purchased, we'd probably have to come back to you for fund balance. That is to cover that, and some ground and equipment maintenance that they're having to do out at the Bogue City Department. I am pulling, again, they, at the end of last year, had over $374,000 in fund balance, so they still will have some remaining once we do this. The second portion is water and sewer fund, due to some increased revenues from taps, from the water tap connections and sewer connections. They have actually had some very nice revenues come in for that, and due to that, they've also had increased costs because they've had additional taps they've had to do. And so I am pulling from the revenues that they have received $120,000 of that to add to their budget so they can go out and purchase the supplies for the additional taps that have come since, just even currently this week, some additional things that they need to get those supplies to do those. And the last portion of this is, again, our SCIF grants from the state. This is just getting those 3 grants that we received on our books so we can start expending those funds. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Okay, hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, I'll turn it over to Jean about RFP deadline.
Yes. The request for proposal deadline for 119 East Court Square, the Welcome Center, it expired March 24th, and at that time, we had not received any proposals. We did have 2 development teams that are interested. One specifically requested that we extend the deadline to allow them time to meet with an architect and submit a proposal. Just a refresher, if you need it, we're seeking proposals from qualified development teams for the sale and adaptive reuse of the 2nd and 3rd floors. We're asking for proposals that would allow multifamily or live-in work units. It would create new housing opportunities in downtown. It would create more pedestrian traffic. It would allow more customers for our downtown businesses. And it would also provide us with additional downtown revitalization through increased private investment and increased property values. What we did, Richie and I talked about it and Laura and I talked about it. We just bumped it out 7 weeks, so the new deadline would be May 16th at 4 o'clock. That's a Monday. And so we would re-advertise on the city's we'd put it back on the city's website. We'd re-advertise with the newspapers. We'd send it back out to some development teams and see if we could get some renewed interest. The staff thinks it's a good idea, so we would just like to ask that you extend the deadline.
Thank you, Jean. Any questions of Jean?
You talking about going to resident, loft living there. I mean, I know you've discussed an elevator there, right? Would we have to have an elevator?
No, they would, the way it was designed, we basically, the Welcome Center, they would be able to, because they've got entry from the Court Square, and they could put in steps going up to the side there on Water Street.
Is the fire?
So that'd be a fire escape.
Is it still out there?
No, the old one's not. But actually, that's what the RFP's for, though. I mean, somebody may come up with a different idea. So, but no, years ago there was an elevator in that building.
There was. It's still there.
Yeah. Well, no, a portion of it is still there. The rest of it, we don't know where that's at. You really can't figure out where it went. We had that conversation. We couldn't figure out where it went.
What I saw, it wouldn't be hard to get out of there. I mean, it'd be pretty hard.
This was pretty. Yeah, this was on the 3rd floor too. So.
Have you looked everywhere up there? Because somebody told me it was there.
A portion of it is. Looks like the top of it. So you don't even see the shaft anymore, so we don't know where it was at. But I think it's more of a freight elevator at that time.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to extend the RFP to May 16th.
So move.
Motion by Marty. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jean.
Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll come back with some progress.
And next item, I'll turn it over to Richie for his manager's report and activity update.
I was picking with TJ because we always estimate what time, and I said, I don't know, 7:30, 7:40, something like that. So not too far. A few dates, because we are fixing to get into our special events and spring activities and so forth. But just a reminder that this Saturday is the second Saturday, shop local, and just encourage everybody to come to our downtown. Next Friday, just a reminder also, it's Good Friday, so city offices will be closed. So just a reminder, and like I say, we don't have trash pickup that day, so it's not that big of a deal. Friday holiday is a lot easier than a Monday holiday. And then the next Saturday, we have our annual Easter egg hunt at Betty G. Ross, and I'm thinking 73 years, Laura? Because if without COVID, we'd have hit 75, I believe it was. So this is something we've done for years. Years ago, when I was little, it was done at City Park, and then once the old South Fork, which is now Betty Ross, was built, they moved it down there. And then April 30th, we have at Untapped, the Western Carolina Home Brewers Association. So we're going to see a lot of people come in from other places and bring their money and spend them in Lincolnton. So we're excited about that. Would like to mention too, I know there's been some activity on social media about Congress Street. We had a main blowout. That's the second time that's happened. So we had a patch. Now we've got an area that's been dug up and patched again. I talked to the pavers. We weren't supposed to have any pave until July 1. Hopefully they can move us up and we can get that area plus the little parking lot right there on the rail trail paved before then. But otherwise, we're on their calendar for after July 1. But like I say, I've asked them to move us up if they could, so we'll see. Hopefully they can. I always like to bring, when we get a letter, we get an email of something positive, what our employees have done. I guess it was about 2 months ago we mentioned Miss Jean Derby and Ashley Jones and their assistance with one of our utility customers. Got another letter about some members of our fire department, Tyler Russ, Julie McIntyre, and Chief Hebner. Young lady had come out of the courthouse and couldn't find her car. I think she had a young child with her, and it was one of those days. It was extremely cold and windy, and they were able to assist her and bring her in and calm her down, and then find her vehicle. But that's the small stuff that you're never going to hear about. But I always want to mention that when it's brought to my attention from a citizen or an employee, and just thank our employees for all they do, because like I say, we have as good as employees you'll find anywhere, and their customer service is terrific. So just wanted to mention that. Also, I'm glad Tommy's here because I had this to mention as well. Wanted to thank Tourism Development and DDA for our shade structure that they've put at First Federal Park at the splash pad. Y'all may not have seen it. I did because I go that way quite a bit. Tommy was up there in his golf cart quite a bit. And him and his crews put that up. And that's just a prime example of how we can work with organizations to improve our community. The mayor and I sat in on a community assessment from United Way last weekend, and it's very impressive the talent we have in our nonprofits across the city. And like I say, without them, we wouldn't be able to provide all the services that we do. Lastly, I would like to thank council again for budget retreat. It is, like I say, for us department heads to be able to come to you and bring our projects, our ideas, and our future needs, and to be able to have conversation, roundtable conversation. I think it's apparent when you sit down with our department heads how lucky we are to have the talent that we do and the expertise and the professionalism. But we just want to thank y'all for allowing us to have that time, and it seems to work, and hopefully we can keep it going. But glad to answer any questions you may have about anything. I know I passed out the code enforcement. That will start to ramp up as grass season comes, as we know. So you'll see that grow a little bit. And TJ and I have talked about the ones that we've got going to court, and I think they're wanting us to wait till the new courthouse opens, because all that had to be transferred over, and it may not get transferred over in a certain way. So as soon as that's open, some of those are coming off. So
what's the opening date?
It's May, isn't it?
May 8th.
Yeah. It is really impressive though, and I've not seen it from let's say the view of Laurel Street. Really haven't paid attention that way. But I was talking to a business owner just opened on Clark Street, which is in front of Dollar Tree and Dollar General, and you can see it across. Kind of looking back across, and it is a beautiful building. And I think they did the right thing. They built that for our needs now and our needs in the future. So they've got room to grow. Thank you, sir.
Okay, this concludes our regular agenda. Did anybody sign up for public comment? Then there is no news media here, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Roby. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Hey.
I believe that.